I solemnly pledge myself before God and in the presence of this assembly to pass my life in purity and to practice my profession faithfully. I will abstain from whatever is deleterious and mischievous and will not take or knowingly administer any harmful drug. I will do all in my power to maintain and elevate the standard of my profession, and will hold in confidence all personal matters committed to my keeping, and all family affairs coming to my knowledge in the practice of my calling. With loyalty will I endeavor to aid the physician in his work, and as a missioner of health, I will dedicate myself to devoted service to human welfare. I still remember the night of the pinning ceremony, the Nightingale Pledge, and the relief of completing an arduous 2 years. I was a fresh graduate of my nursing school, excited and proud. I had passed my NCLEX and couldn't wait to help change the lives of my patients, to do something truly meaningful. "Stephen Collins," my instructor called my name, and I walked to the podium. Shaking her hand, I thanked her before stepping back into my spot. I had done it. I was officially a registered nurse. In a blur, the ceremony concluded, and I found myself in the entryway of the auditorium, awash in chatter. "Hey, Steve, you should come with us to celebrate," Sarah, one of my classmates, shouted from the crowd. I grinned and pushed my way toward her voice. "Yeah, we did. We were fixing to head to the sports bar to celebrate. You should come with us." "You know I'm not a big fan of drinking," I said, chuckling. "That doesn't mean you can't come with us. Besides, you could drive us back and save us some cab fare." I sighed, smiling, and agreed. The night went by in a haze of drinks, laughter, and good food. Before long, I was driving my classmates home, through the deserted, late-night roads of our modest-sized town. The darkness had an ever-present feeling of unease that only faded under the passing streetlights. One by one, I dropped them off, until only Sarah and I remained. She lived a bit out of the way, down a dark and winding road that veered into the country. "Hey," she murmured, leaning closer from the passenger seat. My heart jumped. I had a crush on Sarah, but never worked up the courage to ask her out. Could she be... "Do you see that building up ahead?" Her voice jolted me from my thoughts. I looked where she was pointing. Coming up on the right side of the road was a turnoff to a skilled nursing facility. The building stood out like a sore thumb, the only structure for miles. Its light felt cold, wrong, causing me a shiver. Its brutalist architecture felt like an affront to nature. Light spilled from some of the many windows, but most were as dark as the night itself. A derelict sign in front read, "New Haven Healthcare," though some of the bulbs had burned out. The unease I felt on the dark road was replaced with a palpable dread, as if the sign itself reeked of pure malice. "I never worked there," she continued. "I hear the working conditions are horrible and that they have a high turnover rate." "It certainly isn't a very welcoming building," I replied. After wishing her good night, I got back in my car and noticed a pamphlet lying where Sarah had been sitting. It was an ad for the building we had just passed. On it, nurses and staff were smiling in a strangely uncanny way. The text below read, "Now hiring nurses for our night shift team. No experience necessary. We'll train you. Join the New Haven family today. After working here, you'll never want to leave." That last line sent a chill down my spine. It sounded less like a promise and more like a threat. I was about to dismiss it, but then I read through the pamphlet and saw the pay. My jaw almost hit the floor. On top of full benefits, the starting pay for the RN charge nurse position was almost 3 times the rate of the local hospital. Like many grads, I had a mountain of student loans to pay off. With this money, I'd be debt-free in a year. I could buy a house, maybe finally ask Sarah out. The place gave me the creeps, but they were offering $85 an hour, an insane amount for this area. I folded the paper and placed it in my pocket. I'd have to sleep on it. As the engine sputtered to life, I began my drive home. I fiddled with the radio and saw that it was 4:13 a.m. There was an eerie, unsettling feeling on the drive back. As I rounded a turn, I saw that building once more, though it seemed darker than before.
As I drove past, I could have sworn I saw a nurse standing in the entrance smiling at me. I glanced in my center mirror. Nothing but the building. I have got to get some sleep, I muttered to myself. I checked the console clock. 4:15 a.m.? That was impossible. From Sarah's house to here was a 20-minute drive. I know I left her place around 4:13, so how could it only be 4:15? The sudden blaring of a horn ripped me from my stupor. I swerved to avoid an oncoming car, my heart pounding. Glancing back down, the time displayed was now 4:35 a.m. I'd lost 20 minutes. It had to be exhaustion playing tricks on me. That was the only logical explanation. I finally arrived home, my eyes heavy. I stumbled to my front door, unlocked it, and tossed my coat haphazardly on the couch, the pamphlet all but forgotten in its pocket. Sleep couldn't come soon enough. I opened my eyes, and I was there, at New Haven, standing near the entrance. I turned and saw that the only letters illuminated on the sign were H, E, and L. Scribbled to the right was another L written in something dark and red. A cold wind blew across the entrance, causing me to shiver. "Welcome home, Stephen." The voice carried over the wind, soft and dangerous, almost human, but not quite. I turned and saw the nurse I thought was staring at me on the drive home. She wore the white scrubs and cap of a bygone era. Her eyes were a shade of blue so bright it hurt to look at them. Plastered on her face was that same uncanny smile, a perfect imitation of a human expression, but something was terribly wrong. Excuse me?" I stammered. Her smile stretched even further. "Welcome home, Stephen. We've been expecting you, and we are oh so excited to have you here with us, here with the family." As she finished talking, a barely audible cracking sound emanated from her mouth. "Home? Family?"
"Are you sure?" She tilted her head unnaturally to the side, her smile growing wider, wider than any human mouth should be. I took a step back. Her once pristine scrubs were now yellowed with age, covered in splotches of dried blood. Her once neat hair was unkempt, but that smile, it was far too wide, literally stretching from ear to ear. She took an awkward step forward, as if walking for the first time. "You are going to love it here, Stephen. Things have been so stale, and we are in desperate need of fresh blood on the team." I took another step back, not daring to take my eyes off her. "Really, Stephen, you ought to be more aware of your surroundings," she said, pointing directly behind me. A blaring horn sounded from behind. I turned to see the white headlights of the car I had nearly hit, now just feet from my face. I covered my head and screamed as the lights overtook me, the horn blaring once more, and ringing. I jolted up, safe in my bed, my alarm clock screaming at me. Only a dream. But my throat was hoarse, and I could taste a hint of iron in my mouth. I splashed my face with cold water in the bathroom. It had felt so real, as if my life was in tangible danger. As I sat down for coffee, I noticed the pamphlet on the table right next to me. Odd. I didn't recall taking it out of my coat. I stood up, picked it up, and threw it in the trash. "After that dream, there's no way in hell I'd ever work at that place," I muttered. But as the sun started to set, my job search had proven fruitless. Not a single place nearby was hiring. Defeated, I returned home and stared at the trash can. With such good pay, the position was likely already gone. Well, what do I have to lose? I asked myself, retrieving the pamphlet from the trash. I dialed the number. A woman named Vanessa answered and put me on a hold. A golden opportunity literally handed to me, and I was about to let it slip because of a dream? I swore to myself, if by some miracle the position was still available, I'd take it without a second thought. "It's Stephen," I corrected her when she came back on the line. I checked with my DON, and yes, that position is still available. Would you be available tomorrow at 4 p.m. for an interview? Yes, yes, I said ecstatically. Before I knew it, I was en route to my interview. As I pulled into the driveway, I glanced at the sign. A maintenance worker was replacing the burnt-out bulbs. I breathed a sigh of relief. No hell inscribed on the sign. I chuckled, chalking it up to nerves and exhaustion. I passed through the sliding glass doors into the main lobby. It was beautiful, a stark contrast to the exterior. A secretary handed me an application. It was standard until I reached the bottom of the second page. A small disclosure read, "New Haven Healthcare is not responsible for any damage to property or loss of life or limb for failing to follow the facility rules." Loss of life or limb in a nursing home? And what rules? Just as I was about to ask the secretary, her voice called out, "Stephen, the DON is ready to see you now." The DON, a middle-aged woman named Amy, sat behind a wooden desk. Her voice was soft but stern. "So you're Stephen, correct? Applying for the weekend night position?" she asked, more to herself than me. "That's correct." I wasn't aware we had an opening on that shift. I could have sworn I interviewed someone for that position a month ago. My heart sunk. Was it a mistake?
"No need to worry," she said, clicking her mouse. "It's very likely that the person may have quit. This job isn't for everyone after all." She confirmed the position was available and set me up for orientation. I thanked her and stepped out of the office. I looked at the application form again. The strange disclosure was gone. In its place was a standard line about consenting to a background check. It was as if it had never been there. My orientation was a blur, and soon it was Saturday. I arrived at 6 p.m. for my first shift. In my locker in the break room, I found a manila envelope with my name on it and the words, "Read me." Inside was a single piece of paper, the font bold at the top, "Rules for surviving the night shift." The list was long and bizarre. Rule 2, do not use the elevators. They won't take you anywhere you'd want to go. Rule 4, never round on the even hours. Rule 8, if at any time you see an elderly woman with long black hair, do not acknowledge her. Whatever you do, do not look at her face. If you do, not even the door will save you. I was brought back to reality by another nurse walking into the room. He was built like a soldier with a stethoscope around his neck. His name badge read, Brad. "The name's Brad. Nice to meet you." "Stephen, nice to meet you, Brad." "I'd take it you're the new hire for South Hall then," he said, his eyes on the paper in front of me. "Did you read the rules?" "These?" I picked up the paper. "I did. Not a bad prank for the newbie." Brad stared at me, his face serious. "No prank, friend. Those are real. If you want to make it to the next sunrise, you'd best follow them. That piece of paper is your Bible now." "You got the same piece of paper when you started?" I scoffed. "It's no joke. This place isn't like other nursing homes. There's real evil here. It will gobble you up like the nurse before you. Why else do you think a position was available?" "I assumed they quit." He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Nobody quits here. Once you sign the contract, that's it. No turning back." "Contract?" "The night supervisor will give you one if you survive. Listen closely, kid. The supervisor isn't normal. This place isn't normal. The second floor is always closed for renovation, but the day crew doesn't know any better. That sign by the time clock, the one about the new rehab wings, it's been there for 6 months. Never ages, never changes. I've tried taking it down, it always comes back." "How is that possible?" "Hell if I know. I think it's the supervisor. She's not human. She can bend reality, warp the memories of the day staff. The DON, did she seem confused about your position? Did she remember the last nurse who had it?"
I thought back to the interview. No, she didn't. That's because if you die here, you don't just die. This place claims you. You're erased from the world. Your friends, your family, gone. You never existed. The previous nurse, Ashley, she was my girlfriend. 2 months ago, she broke a rule. She looked at the black-haired woman. "I'm so sorry," I stuttered. Me too, friend," Brad said, his voice softening. "I still see her, you know? She wanders the halls. Sometimes I see her die in different ways, over and over again. The sounds, they're enough to drive a man insane. Don't sign the contract. If you make it through the night, run and never look back." A beeping from Brad's watch signaled the end of our chat. "You stick to the rules, no matter what," he said, his face grim, and then he walked out. My mind was reeling. He wasn't pranking me. This was real. I took the stairs up to the second floor, each step heavier than the last. Was my dream a warning?
At 6:28 p.m., I punched in and opened the door to South Hall. The halls were pristine, no sign of renovation. I walked to the nurse's station. A nurse sat with her back to me, typing. I introduced myself. She spun around in her chair, and I nearly choked. Her name badge read, Ashley, LPN. She smiled, a certain coldness in her voice. "Hello. You must be the new night nurse. If you'll come with me, I'll give you a report as we round." I almost followed, but then I remembered Rule 3. If they ask to do walking rounds, politely decline. "Actually," I said, my throat dry, "I would prefer we do report here." She furrowed her brow. "It would be better if we round." "I'm sorry, I need to use the bathroom," I said, walking towards the employee restroom. As I closed the door, I saw her standing there, her expression now one of pure malice. I locked the door. In the mirror, I saw Ashley standing behind me, smiling. I spun around. No one was there. I remembered Rule 6. The digital clocks lie. I found an analog clock above the door. 4 minutes had passed. Had I checked my phone, which read 6:59, I would have panicked and left early. I shuddered, not wanting to think what might have happened. When 5 minutes had passed, I unlocked the door. In Ashley's place was an empty desk with a single sheet of paper. The report. The last name on the sheet read, Larry, very violent towards staff today. The rounding schedule was tight, growing shorter with each passing hour, until it was a mere 10 minutes at 5 a.m. My residents were on the 600 hall, except for Larry, in room 501. When I reached his room, I knocked 3 times and said, "Nursing," before opening the door. "Get out of here, boy," a deep voice growled from the pitch-black room. "My apologies, sir," I said, turning to leave. "You didn't bow," the voice growled again, this time directly behind me. A cold hand with long black nails grabbed my left forearm, digging into my flesh. It began to pull me into the room, into a cold, endless black void of absolute nothingness. I quickly lowered my head and bowed. "I am deeply sorry, sir," I stammered. The grip released. The door slammed shut. 3 deep gashes oozed blood from my forearm. Brad wasn't joking. The rules were real. "Are you okay?" a female voice asked. I jumped. A young woman in blue scrubs sat next to me.